The sky was turning dark, heavy clouds rolling in like waves of ink over the small, quiet town of Maple Ridge. The weather forecast had warned everyone a record-breaking storm is coming tonight. But for Ethan Cole, a single dad with grease-stained hands and a heart full of hope, there wasn't much choice. He couldn't afford to sit out a day's work, not when every dollar counted towards his little girl's asthma medication. That afternoon, as he drove his old pickup truck down the back road, he saw a desperate sight. A woman standing in front of a big farmhouse, waving for help, rain already starting to drizzle. Her roof shingles were half torn off by the wind. Ethan slowed down. He hesitated for a moment. His daughter, Lily, was waiting for him at home. But something in that woman's eyes, a fear, helplessness, made him turn around. He parked, stepped out, and called, "Ma'am, you okay?" The woman, Grace Langford, tried to speak over the wind. "The roof's coming apart. I've called 3 contractors and no one's answering. I'll pay anything, just say." Ethan didn't let her finish. "Don't worry, I'll fix it, but we have to move fast." Grace blinked, surprised at his confidence. He was just a stranger, but his voice carried calm assurance, the kind that only comes from someone used to fighting storms of his own. Within minutes, Ethan was on the roof, hammering through the wind, his jacket soaked through. Grace kept shouting for him to come down, that it was too dangerous. But Ethan didn't stop. He worked until the last nail was in place, the last hole patched. When he finally climbed down, drenched and shivering, lightning split the sky as the storm had truly arrived. Grace led him inside, wrapping him in a towel. "You could have been killed up there," she said softly. Ethan just smiled. "Wouldn't be the first storm I've survived." She looked at him, then really looked. He wasn't just another handyman. There was a quiet strength in his eyes, a story untold. They sat by the fire, listening to the storm beat against the windows. Grace asked about his life, and slowly, the truth came out. His wife had died 3 years ago, leaving him alone with their 5-year-old daughter. He worked odd jobs to make ends meet, sometimes fixing roofs, sometimes repairing fences. He'd never taken charity, never asked for more than he earned. Grace felt her chest tighten. She was the heir to the Langford estate, a vast empire that owned half the land across the state, farms, factories, and properties. But she had kept that part of her life quiet, tired of people treating her differently once they knew her last name. Ethan had no idea who she really was, and that, strangely, made her feel human again. The next morning, as the sun broke through, Grace made breakfast for Ethan and invited him to stay for coffee. He tried to refuse payment, saying, "Just glad I could help. I've got to get home to Lily." Grace pressed the money into his hands anyway. "At least take this for your daughter," she said softly. A few days later, Ethan got a call from a number he didn't recognize. "Mr. Cole, this is Langford Properties. We're looking for a maintenance foreman to oversee repairs on multiple properties. Grace Langford recommended you personally." He nearly dropped the phone. "Gracie, a broken bar Langford?" "Yes, ma'am said you'd be perfect for the job. Full benefits, flexible hours." That night, Ethan couldn't stop thinking about it. He drove back to the farmhouse, unsure what to say. Grace greeted him with her usual calm smile, though her eyes held a warmth he hadn't seen before. "You didn't tell me who you really were," he said quietly. She shrugged. "You didn't ask, and maybe I liked that." He smiled, a rare, genuine smile. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes," she whispered. "You've helped enough people. Let someone help you for a change." Ethan took the job. Over the next few months, he transformed dozens of neglected properties, earning respect and stability for the first time in years. Grace visited often, always finding an excuse to check on progress. But it wasn't the roofs she was checking on anymore, it was him, and little Lily, who had started calling her Miss Grace. One afternoon, Lily ran up to Grace, holding a drawing. "That's you and Daddy fixing roofs together," she said proudly. Grace's eyes softened as she saw the little stick figures under a bright yellow sun. She looked at Ethan, tired, smiling, his hands rough from work but his heart wide open. It wasn't long before Grace realized she didn't just admire his kindness, she loved him for it. And for Ethan, who had built his life from ashes, Grace was the unexpected light that reminded him that good people, like strong roofs, can weather any storm. Months passed, and the Langford estate flourished under Ethan's care. But the biggest change wasn't in the buildings, that was in their hearts. Grace had learned humility and love from a man who had nothing to give but everything that mattered. And Ethan had learned that sometimes miracles don't fall from the sky, they appear on rainy days when you stop to help a stranger in need. In the final scene, as the camera pans out from their farmhouse, the same storm clouds gather again, but this time, Ethan stands on the porch with Grace and Lily, smiling. Because this time, he knows a broken bar, whatever comes next, they'll face it together. Message: sometimes life's biggest storms lead you to the safest shelter, not a house, but a heart that finally feels like home.